Hey guys, welcome back to Calculus News. One of today's trending topics seems to be the elusive Riemann sum. While Riemann sums can seem intimidating, today we'll teach you how to calculate these from tables. Today we're just going to focus on left, right, and midpoint sums. We'll use this table to show you how easy they are to solve. Let's start with the basics. Regardless of whether you are finding a left, right, or midpoint sum, always pay attention to your x values. They are vital to solving these correctly. In a left and right-hand sum, all of the x values will be used, while in midpoint sums, only half of your x values will be used. Always pay attention to how many subintervals the problem tells you to use. First, let's talk about left-hand Riemann sums. When finding a sum from the left, it is best to immediately cross out your y value on the far right. You won't be needing this one. Next, we need to find the difference between the x values. This will serve as your height, which we'll get into in another episode. For this table, the difference between all of our x values is the same, but this is not always going to be the case, so make sure you pay special attention to your x values. After finding your difference between x values, you're going to multiply each of your remaining y values, which will be the 3, 6, 8, and 10, each by 1. So since this is a left hand, these two will go to this value, these two will go to this value, these two will go to this value, and these two will go to this value. So as you see, we're going to take the difference up here, and we're going to multiply it by this y value. And then we're going to take the difference of these two right here, which is also 1, and multiply it by this value. So pretty much you're making like a sideways L, but as you see, we're all doing it towards these left y values, ignoring this one, since we're just doing it from the left side. So your final equation will look like this. You'll have 1 times 3 plus 1 times 6 plus 1 times 8 plus 1 times 10. And that will give you 27. This is going to be our final left-hand sum. Now I'm going to show you how to find, from the same exact example table, the right Riemann sum. Okay, so for this problem, we're first going to start by, instead of crossing out our rightmost, we're actually going to cross out our leftmost since we're trying to find the right sum. So we're going to ignore this value right here. And since we already know that the difference between each of these x values is 1, all we have to do now pretty much is just multiply each of these by 1 and add them up together just like we did before. So except this time ignoring this value. So we're going to have 1 times 6 plus 1 times 8 plus 1 times 10 plus 1 times 12, which is going to give us 36. So for this right-hand sum, our answer is going to be 36. And that's just purely based off finding the difference of these two, which we already determined was 1 earlier, and then taking these rightmost values and ignoring this one. Okay, so last but not least, we are going to talk about midpoint sums. So midpoint sums, unlike left and right-hand sums, will actually have a lot to do with these x values, which is surprising since you're only going to actually use half of them. So pretty much what you're going to do first is find out how many subintervals we're going to use. So for this one, just by looking at it, just to make it easier, we're just going to use 2. Because we have 5, we see that these two will be one subinterval, and these two will be the other. Okay, so since we have our 2 subintervals here, we are actually going to use the y value between these two. So you're pretty much going to ignore this one in the middle, and we can just go ahead and cross those out. So you're going to completely ignore these x values right here. And then you're going to also completely ignore these two on the sides of your y value. So you're going to ignore this one, and you're going to ignore this one. So in the end, you're only going to be adding two things together. Okay. Well, first let's find our difference between our x's. So here we're going to go from 1 to 3, which is going to be 2, and from 3 to 5, which is also going to be 2. Okay, so now that we have our x, our heights, we have our y right here. So pretty much you're just trying to find like the midpoints on like a graph, which we'll talk about in the next episode. But this is just how to do it from the table. So you're going to do 2 times 6 plus 2 times 10. And this is going to give you 32. And that is going to be your midpoint Riemann sum. And now you know how to find left, right, and midpoint sums from tables. Thanks for watching. Come back next week to find out how to calculate Riemann sums from graphs.